I took some nice examples out of it, but there are hundreds of examples and nice stories behind, and also scientific background, references. So, yeah, if you need a nice present for yourself or others to read, why not this nice book? For example, apples. If you have an apple from your own garden, the carbon footprint is near zero. But if you buy an apple out of season, which has been for a couple of months in a cooling house in Central Europe, then one apple has 290 grams. Or if you have a Zoom call, similar what we are having now, 1 hour on the laptop, then this is 10 gram CO2 emissions equivalent. Or if you buy a paper bag from recycling paper, then it is 12 gram CO2 equivalents. Or if you cook a liter of water with an electric heater, it's 40 gram. If you put a pot without covering the pot on gas heated oven, then it is between 40 and 100 grams, and so on and so on. And nice is also the bike trip example. If you're eating banana for going on a bike trip, each mile, which is 1.6 kilometer, will be 40 gram. But if you are feeding yourself with cheeseburgers, then it's about 8 times as much. So then you need for a mile 310 grams CO2. And if you have an e-bike, which is fueled with eco-electricity, then it's even better than a banana. So this is crazy. E-bike with electric is more climate friendly than your normal bike. But maybe you can come beyond 40 gram by eating only apples from your garden, maybe. I think this could work. Well, if you watch TV streaming and have an LED screen of 5 to 5 inches, it's 170 grams and so on. But then he's also giving other examples like a kilogram of Parmesan cheese, which is 19 kilogram CO2. Or if you put a complete filling in your car with fuel, with gasoline, then it's 173 kilograms. Or if you buy a computer, it's between, also a notebook, it's between 300 and 600 kilogram roughly. Or if you fly with a space shuttle in the atmosphere and beyond, then it's about 7,060 tons of carbon dioxide equivalents. So, yeah, lots of numbers, but I think combating climate crisis and forces us to look more severe and more accurate on all these terrible numbers and get a feeling what it means to behave and to consume in a certain way. Well, looking on enterprises, for example, we have this carbon footprint calculation based on the so-called greenhouse gas protocol standard. They differ between different scopes. They look on supply chain as well. They look on all the gases. They look on direct activities in the region, indirect activities in the region, indirect activities outside the region. And so it's elaborated, it's working, it's established already. We have also calculated the carbon footprint of Greifswald University, but we had only data for 2 sectors like energy, electricity and heating, and mobility, like traveling of staff and also students. And we related 2 different years, and we found that the footprint was reduced from about nearly 9,000 to 3,600 because we, as a federal state, changed from fossil fuel produced electricity to eco-electricity. So this was the main game changer, so to say, to greatly improve our footprint. But it's still rather big. There is still a lot to do. And we have growth in traveling. Here, violet is, for example, airplane traveling. And we have a more or less constant situation in heating, which is yellow and orange. And we are now calculating the footprint for 2019 at the moment. And yeah, there's a lot to do. We need to calculate the numbers for the missing sectors, like materials and houses and waste and so. I will skip this. Yeah, back to this slide, which is showing the different sectors. This is the global carbon footprint worldwide related to sectors of our all daily life. It's showing that what for we are creating the carbon footprint. Yeah, this is called sectors. So this graph here shows that 19% is produced in the so-called housing, everything what we are doing in the house, or 17% related to traveling, 20% to food, 9% to products, 7% to services, 18%, which is a lot of capital, so investments, and also 19%, which is infrastructure like streets, buildings provided by the state. But this graph is 20 years old. So here's a calculation from which more recent for Germany, the situation in Germany, Central Europe. And unfortunately, all these overviews have different approaches, how they split the carbon footprint in sectors. Here we have a slightly differing sector, group of sectors. The 100% are split. The biggest one is the consumption. The second biggest is mobility, so all kind of traveling. And then 18 is heating, it's quite big. Food is 14%. Public infrastructure is 10%, and this is electricity is only 7%. So this is the mean CO2 emission in Germany related to sectors of daily life, which is also giving us an impression here in Central Europe, where are the biggest potentials? Where do we have to look very carefully if we want to reduce? So we all know that there are, every year we have more challenging targets and objectives how to reduce our global carbon footprint. You all know that the Paris Agreements is saying limit the global warming to well below 2, preferably to 1.5 degrees. In Europe, we have a hot discussion, and in Germany, and this year we had sharper reduction emissions. So EU came up with a reduction target of 55% until 2030 from the 0 point of 1990, and they want still reach climate neutrality by 2050. So related to the past, this is very challenging, but it's still not sufficient to fulfill Paris, probably. In Germany, we are also more, we want to reach the target quicker. So it was decided this year to reduce the emissions by 65% related to 1990 until 2030. And 88% until 2040, and to reach climate neutrality in 2045. This means that every year we have to lower the footprint about 2-4%. And of course, then we have individually to look on this, if we can do it in the current situation. Yeah, Greifswald University recently decided to reach climate neutrality by 2030. So Greifswald University has a very challenging target, which is in accordance with Paris. We would have to reduce 11% every year. So this is in the beginning, and we are going to develop a measure plan in the next months. Well, we are near the practical part, and before I go into that, I would like to ask you if there are questions up to now and comments from your side.
I just wanted to ask you maybe to explain a little bit more what would mean carbon neutrality. What would it include? Because to cut carbon emissions, it's understandable, it's self-explaining, but carbon neutrality, what exactly does it mean?
Yeah, carbon neutrality would mean that, you mean on the basis of a country?
Even in general.
In general, it means that you have a net emission of 0. That means that if you have, as a country, it's very difficult or impossible to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 0 to 0, because, for example, if you still want to have an industry and you want to produce cement or the activities, the economic activities, you will create a little carbon footprint also with methane production. I'm not so good, I cannot say you how many tons, but let's say 10, 20, 30% cannot be, they cannot be reduced. So it's not possible physically, but then there is the mechanism to compensate. So to create sinks. The whole model will only work if we will create new sinks and activate sinks. So we have to reduce the sources, technical sources, natural sources, and we have to create new sinks like, let's say, afforestation, for example, or there are a lot of technologies in the pipeline like carbon storage technologies. And so at the moment they are not efficient enough to fulfill this, but they will be able to at least support this target. I think at the moment now nobody can really guarantee, even if there are technical opportunities and possibilities, that the calculation will be net zero will be possible completely. But this is the target. So a mixture of reduction and creating new sinks, because some sources cannot be irradiated. So there will still be some source left.
Yeah, thank you very much for a reminder.
And the same with institutions. So as a university, we can shift to regenerative energies 100%. But still then we will have a very low, because a water power plant has to be constructed. So there is still always a low carbon footprint. Or if you reduce flights, still some flights with airplanes will be necessary. So then you need to compensate, for example, by re-wetting wetlands or by afforestation or by other technical solutions in your region or in another region. Well, are there more questions from your side? One more question, maybe. Okay, if this is not the case, then I will explain the active part. So now it's time for you to become active and work in breakout rooms. The idea is that we split the group of participants in working groups of, let's say, 4 people. And in the breakout rooms, but then you will be free to discuss whatever you like in the breakout rooms related to the topic or not. And the breakout room will be open for the whole break until we go on with part 2. Your main challenge is now to calculate your carbon footprint by using different tools which are available in the internet. I will show you a list, and I will put the list into the chat very soon so that you can simply activate it. So this is your task for the next 1.5 hours. Calculate your footprint. So the number of carbon dioxide equivalents per year. And then you will have, depending on the tool you use, you will have an idea about which sectors are most important for your footprint. So are you a person eating a lot of meat? Then you probably meat or food will be the main sector for you. Or if you are traveling a lot by plane, then plane will be the main sector. Or if you have a oil heating and a very old building where you are living, huge building, then maybe heating will be your main sector. And so I asked you to give, as good as possible, depending on the tool, tons and that you know about how many tons in which sector, more or less. And then third, I asked you to write these results into the Padlet, which is here. I will put it in the chat soon. And there we have a table is prepared where you can write your name, Luisa, Timo, and then which tool you have used and what is your amount of carbon footprint. And if we have a nice overview of what our group is emitting, we can look on the sectors a bit more in detail and we can discuss about reduction potentials. So where are our limitations? What could stimulate our carbon footprint reduction? How should the system change? How should policy change? How should maybe our lifestyle change? What technologically should change to enable the challenging reduction targets we have to fulfill now? So, and then we can have an idea of under what circumstances or to what extent we will be able to contribute to reach the Paris targets. And I recommend try to at least one other calculator, because all calculators, of course, give slightly different approaches, slightly different results. Here are the calculation machines. All of them are in English. I checked out some, and this is my estimate how long it takes. So some are a bit more detailed, like the UBA Rechner or carbonfootprint.com, and some are very easy, like my climate, for example. They are simple. So you can decide what you would prefer. And the WWF one is, I think, is also a very good one. It's also about 15 minutes. Yeah, this is part 2. So let's go to the chat. So Nilofar writes, the role of livestock in consuming meat is very important in CO2 emissions. Yeah, I agree. We will, after the practice, after the break, we will talk about this a bit more in detail. Julia is saying, I have done it before. It would be reasonably low looking at my daily activities, diet, electricity usage, etc., but my flights ruin everything. Yeah. I have done it with some students. I think Ekaterina was in the group. She is also with us today still. No, not anymore. No, here she is. Yeah. And we had huge differences between, no, I will not talk about the numbers now. Maybe I check them up, would be funny. I still have the slide somewhere where I have the old numbers. Yeah, flights are ruin sums budgets. And Julia, maybe you have to think about solutions. Thinky, I have during my study module, but I don't remember my result. Well, okay. We did some carbon. This is the point. Yeah, you have to do this a couple of times until you become used to these dimensions. We did some carbon footprint calculation at university, but don't remember the tool used. It was pretty basic. Yeah, well, it's quickly to check out some of these tools, and yeah, I'm happy that it works. So, are there any questions at the moment about the working plan in the break? Then now would be the moment to ask. I will, if not, I will now send you in breakout rooms, and we will meet in the main session room after 1.5 hours. I wish you good luck. I have a look in the chat. Okay, yeah, Alexandra used the WWF tool. I think it's a good one. So then, have a nice break. have a nice chat in the breakout rooms, and good luck with calculating, and put some effort on identifying the importance of the different sectors of your footprint. And then we will meet and have a look on the Padlet later together. I've seen that many of you have calculated footprints, and it would be great if some of you could just present their experiences with the calculators, explain a bit how it worked, if it was well, if it was interesting, what were the problems, and also that we will have a look together on your footprint itself. So which sectors are interesting for you? What do you think about the results? Do you think it's realistic? I suggest that we will have maybe 3-4 of you presenting their results. And who first come, first serve. Kasper.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, wonderful.
Okay, great. So my problem is the opposite. I don't have a camera, but I do have my microphone.
No problem now.
We should manage. Okay. So looking at my my results, I did 2 of them actually. I did the Uber one first, which I know it's aimed at Germany specifically, but I was curious what it would show up, and it was around 9 tons. It was 8.7, the total footprint, and a lot of it was mobility, because I live in the UK, but I'm Polish, so I fly a lot, similar to Julia actually. We fly a lot, so it was like.
Sorry to interfere. You did not write your data in the table, right?
I did write it in the what is it? The Padlet, yeah.
Okay.
It's the blue one. It's the Casper UK blue one.
Okay. It's strange why it is going up and down on my screen.
Because I think it's when people add their own data points, they just kind of go in order as they add them. So if 2 people add it, or like 1 person doesn't add it, then it kind of shifts. Yeah.
Crazy. Okay, you are the blue one.
Yes, I'm the blue one. Yes, it's the Uber calculator. It's the 8.7 tons, 25% mobility, and that's pretty much all of it is flying, which is really sad. But it's I'm not really sure how to cut down on flying that much.
By not flying.
By not flying, yeah, probably. But it's visiting family, for like holidays, like 2 or 3 times a year. So it's that kind of part of your life that you don't really want to change that much. Although I do try to offset, the flights. But I wouldn't mind if the flights were a bit more expensive. But if they were like offsetting it more, I actually wouldn't mind paying a bit more, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's one of the things.
Thank you very much, Kaspar. Having a look on the overall table, you are somewhere kind of in the middle, right? So even really lower than many others who have 11, 13, and 15 and so. So maybe you are, spite of your lots of flights, you are still not that high in total, but related what we want to reach, it's another point. Does someone want to comment on Kaspar's footprint, or maybe also on Kaspar's argumentation why the flights would be necessary, more or less? If so, you can just open your mic and start talking. Maybe that's not the case. I would give a short comment to traveling, but my last trip to the UK, I went by train, and there is a quick train from Brussels. I think it was fine. I think it was traveling Greifswald to the UK. So from Poland could be possible as well, I guess, in one day.
Hmm. Yeah, and to be honest, even though the flight itself is 2 hours, I do spend like the whole day anyway, kind of
Yeah, okay.
airport waiting and stuff. Yeah, so yeah, probably wouldn't be that bad.
So the train connection from Brussels, you know it, yeah? It's the tunnel.
Yeah, the Eurotunnel. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, is it the Eurotunnel? No, the Eurotunnel.
Yeah, it's the Eurotunnel.
Okay, yeah. I've never taken a train, between the UK and and another country, but have to try it out.
Would probably reduce the footprint by, let's say, 80% or something.
I'll consider it the next time, actually.
Shengyue, what about your mic?
Hope it's getting better now.
Yeah, we hear you.
Great. Fantastic.
Oh.
Great. Thanks, Dr. Tiemo. So just to kind of take it from where we just discussed traveling, I mean, of course, there are other options, traveling with newer and more efficient aircraft types. That definitely helps as well. And by traveling to airports that are more well connected and more well served by public transport, that can help as well. But I mean, for the tools per se, these carbon footprints calculators, they're really a very good way to actually engage the citizens and to actually roadmap their daily actions and how their impacts are in this process of our ecological agendas. And I think that's really the power of it, the charm of it, because I think, as Tammy has pointed out, it actually started as a PR stout. It's a PR campaign, pretty much, according to Tama and the article that she sent out. But I think it's very important because consumption is such a huge part of our daily lives as ordinary citizens who might or might not be interested in political actions and robust legislative acts at all. But by making our choices, I think it's such an organic part of this bigger process that eventually has implications for strategies, marketing strategies, and operational strategies of big corporations, and also for state actors. So I think it's a very important act. I mean, of course, you start small, but this awareness raising mechanism, the campaign, the calculator, I think it's such an important part. So yeah, I'm just kind of really taken aback by how much I actually consume and spend. And I think, I will take a minute to work it out. How can I actually reduce on that number? But of course, I will not be obsessed with the number per se. It's really about what kind of lifestyle that you can continue and to help sustain the future without compromising their potentials as well. Thanks.
Thank you, Chengui, for your statement. Yeah, and I'm happy that you like to calculate and that you think it was fruitful for you to come more in touch with the topic. I think the dimension of the individual behaviors is important, but the general political acting behind, so let's say the big strategies, political strategies, are even more important. So both are addressed directly and indirectly, I think, by all kind of these calculations. It's just kind of, the awareness shall create impulses to change individuals, but societies as well. I think it can help. And looking a little bit more on I would like to look a little bit more on your specific footprint. And are you living in China?
No, not really. of course, that's a huge part if we're talking about how I actually travel from China, because obviously it's not a pilgrimage for me on food. So I'm currently living in the Czech Republic. I've been living here since 2019. I did take some short haul or mid haul flights last year. It's a huge part of the mobility and subsequently increasing the number of the footprint. But I mean, in general, it's also about how the country that I'm living in, the Czech Republic, is kind of responding to greener options for its energy sector, for its food sector. So now I'm really conscious in, for example, buying local produce and supporting businesses that has greener practices, like without packaging, and that are trying to kind of support these merchants that is local craftsmanship, for instance.
Yeah, right. You are everywhere the second last, right?
Yeah, that's me. That's me.
Yeah. Okay. So you are more or less very similar, like the German normal consumer, which is, I think, 11.6 or so at the moment. And I see that the sectors, they are also distributed rather equally. With a slight emphasis on maybe, indeed mobility, but food consume, Okay, so thank you very much again. I would like to have one of the low footprint persons talking, and maybe because she was so active in the chat, but there is Venki and there is Julia Bacik, but I was talking about Taisia first. Taisia, you wrote a lot in the chat, and I couldn't read it up to now. Would you like to talk a little bit about that? Or if you think it's not important, then we would continue with Venki. What do you think?
Hello, could you hear me?
Yeah, hello, Taisia.
Hello. Yeah, I will just be very brief to make a summary of what I have written in the chat, and then most probably there will be still time to continue with the other person. I did do the calculation, and I came up with a very pretty low, as the website states, pretty low carbon footprint. But I was thinking about the means and the goals of this exercise. I was thinking about how much can we rely on the consumer end of this process, of the whole process, and do we actually make an impact that will drastically change the numbers that we are trying to reach according to the Paris Agreement, and how much of this is actually non-dependent on us as consumers. So I brought a very simple example, and maybe I can bring another one here vocally, not in the chat. For example, I refuse all the public transport that is working on gas. So I use trams, or I go by foot or by bike. But do my habits change the oil spills in Gulf of Mexico or something like this? So how big is the impact of that? So basically, this is what I have written above, and how the footprint idea, the actual carbon footprint idea, was created as a PR stunt by the British Petroleum, and kind of switching the whole topic and making it our fault, as the general public, something like this.
Thank you very much, Taisia, for this comment. I completely agree to this. On one hand, I see there, of course, there is this policy by the lobbies, especially the fossil fuel lobbies, but also all, let's say, big companies who live on fuel consumption indirectly, like land use or food or whatever it might be, that they have the strategies to give all the responsibility to the individual consumer. So now, so to say, well, we go on with business as usual, and you, by buying in the shop, you have to decide on our policy. I completely agree that this is not the way to change the system and to do climate protection, making it effectively. I completely think we have to address politicians, but on the other hand, not forget about the other thing as well. And as I try to explain, I think it's important to also to correct in our minds to get a bit of feeling, where is really the music playing? Yeah, what we say, where are the biggest effects on the global footprint? Where is it produced? For example, like in the agriculture, which some sectors are really not so much in mind. People care a lot about microplastic in the oceans and so, which is a bad thing, but it's not that much important, for example, for climate change, or like separating the waste or so. To become clear, where is really the problem, about the diversity of the problem. I think for this it helps to be more trained in understanding carbon footprint, understanding the effect of the personal lifestyle on consumer decisions, but also on the national policy, on the worldwide policy making. And I think in Europe we had big progress in the last years. We are not far by reaching the target, but also on the global scale, like what you see, what is happening also in China with the carbon neutrality coming into the perspective. And this is addressed now worldwide. And I see also this awareness thing with the footprint as one small puzzle piece, directly and indirectly, to be successful with climate protection in the end, what I really wish to be. What do you think about my answer, Tyler? Sorry, I forgot your name.
Taisia, yeah, you were right. I'm very happy that you have joined this conversation, and you also support the idea that policymaking plays very important role in this process. So of course we all should engage in these small activities, but we should also know that they are really small, and we need to to aim higher and maybe to be a little bit more radical about such things, because the clock is ticking. We do not have much time left.
I would like to give a nice example for how these things are connected in German policy. We had a civil society tool which is called petition. We can give a petition in the national governments. I think it's existing in most countries. If you have a certain critical number of people who subscribe, we want that the national government deals with this topic. And then we need 250,000, I think, subscriptions or something like that within a week. This is now working online very well. And there was a petition and which was recommending to write the carbon footprint on any product in shops, starting with supermarkets, with food, so that you can see what is the footprint of your apple or what you're buying, whatever it is. And this, of course, it's for consuming, but it's also policy, because then it's in the government, and of course the lobbies of the big food supply enterprises, they don't like it. The strategy, the tactic is to say yes and no at the same time and try to make the process of developing it as slow as possible. We have a agro ministry in Germany, and she was really slowing down this process, and because she is like near to the lobbies, but it's now in the national government. It will be soon. I think in this autumn after the elections. I think in Germany there will be a discussion in the national government about this, and I think it will come. So, and this makes also that by this instrument, it will change something in the policy and also in the minds.
Yeah, this is a wonderful initiative. I wish that more countries could do something like this, to have the opportunity to speak directly to the public.
Yeah. Okay, so then I would like to go on with Venki, telling a little bit about I think Venki. Would you like to explain your experience and results a bit?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's good.
So I tried 2 tools. One was carbonfootprint.com and another one was WWF. So with carbon footprint, I got my total carbon emission around 6.5 tons, and in which the most of it was mobility, and the other was with food and the car and other thing. The one difference I want to point out is the carbon footprint was much more in detail. Like you need to put values for electricities and everything, which I couldn't find in other tools, and which I liked about in this.
Yeah, thank you, Venki. Yeah, I know. I forgot to mention the kind of mean. You can maybe give a number of 1,400 kilowatt hours per person. This is the mean value for Germany, maybe similar in other European countries. But when I see on your table, then I don't find the 6.5. It looks as if you would have a 1338 in total.
No, it's around 6.45, I think.
Okay.
It's just rearranged, like the order is kind of not in the right place.
Okay, I think that with the table it did not work so well.
Yeah.
What do you think is your main? Can you go through the sectors and mention your values in different sectors? Because 6.5 indicates a really low.
Yes. So first of all,
you're living in Romania. Are you?
No, I'm currently living in Lithuania.
Okay.
But I'm from India, so I'm just studying over there.
You are India also.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I mixed it up in the table. I thought you were from Romania. Now it's clear. Yeah.
No issues. So my major emission is from mobility as usual. It's around 2.2, and then it's from the
2.2. May I interrupt? Is one flight? You're right, to India and back.
Yeah, it's one whole trip.
Yeah.
So in the past years, I haven't traveled much because of COVID and everything. So maybe that number can get increased. And the other thing is I live in dorm, so my electricity expenses are very minimal. And then again, I'm kind of vegetarian, so I don't have meat expenses and everything. So my carbon emissions has to come low.
Yeah, cool. What do you think? Do you think it's possible to come near two tons? I think 2 tons is kind of critical size, which seems to be possible for the globe. At least this was the value discussed a couple of years ago. Maybe it still should be lower, probably. But is there any reduction opportunity left? You are already.
I think there can be some, I use vehicle a lot, so maybe I can come with bicycles and cut off those part of emissions.
So you would rely on technical modernization so that we have regenerative energy driven mobility, heating and electricity. And with food, there is not much.
You can always go for the local vendors.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Venki. So, did you learn something, or did you know everything already?
It was interesting. Thanks. Informative.
This is Venki as well, or?
It's Shangyue, but I guess that speaks for a lot of them.
Fine.
A lot of me.
I think we go on. We have 15 minutes left, and I would go on, let's say 5 to 10 minutes, a little bit with the presentation, and then we can have 5 minutes discussion round again at the end for those who still would like to add some of their insights. So I hope that I'm now able to enlarge my presentation again. We were talking about a little bit about different strategies. So yeah, the question is, can I reach Paris? Of course, it makes sense to reach Paris in person as well, and then you would have to fly. But in this case, I mean reaching Paris Agreement targets. And this would mean that all of us had roughly to reduce every year our carbon footprint by 5 to 10%, because Paris intends to fulfill the 1.5 or near to 1.5 degrees, and there's only 0.3 degrees Celsius free, so all of us have to reduce, and those who start from low numbers have to reduce slower amounts and absolute amounts, of course. But percentage is between, I think, depends on your concept of climate justice, and if you more want to have 1.5 or 0.5, so there is, let's say, between 2 and 15, 20% per year. Well, in the UBA tool, the UBA, one of the tools there, they look again on Germany, and they look on a person who is, let's say, reducing their consume in Germany as much as possible, tries to live as sustainable and climate friendly as possible. This person is hypothetical and is called Katharina. And Katharina, you know, in Germany, the mean carbon footprint equivalent is 11.6 or 11 or maybe 10.6 now. It's around 11 still. And Katharina can go to less than 50% down to 5 point something. She has a small flat. She is heating only if necessary. She is looking for a place to live where she can reduce traveling. She's working with car sharing, so she doesn't have a car. She has a cycle, which is using for short distances. She doesn't go on long trips, so not transatlantic or trans-ocean trips, only small trips. She is using eco-electricity. This is really a big deal effect and easy to manage for those who have the opportunity, and usually it doesn't cost so much more. So buy eco-electricity if you have not done yet. And she's buying energy efficient electric instruments, let's say in the kitchen or whatever. She's vegetarian. She's buying bioproducts. By the way, the bioproducts turn out to be not much more climate friendly than others in Europe, but they are good for the environment and other aspects. Okay, she's buying recycling products and environmental friendly products, and she buys CO2 certificates for 200 euros. So she's also compensating. So she is kind of what the best option or the best climate friendly person, which is more or less possible in Germany at the moment. And this is here maybe interesting for you to have a look. We have here the Otto Normalverbraucher. This is our name for, let's say, the normal citizen. And this is Katharina. And you see here the sectors. So Otto Normalverbraucher is about 11 tons CO2 equivalent. And the biggest ones are consumption and mobility and heating. But also there's a big here in the public infrastructure in food. So, and Katharina can reduce even public infrastructure, but also food, nearly 50%. She can reduce consumption more than 50%. She can completely, eco-electricity, then the green is gone more or less, and greatly reduces also heating and mobility. And this is also another aspect. She is creating CO2 reduction at other persons because she has a family, she has children, she has friends, and she is with her work. Let's say she's maybe organizing a trip, and not a long distance trip, but short distance. So she is caring for the footprint of others. This is also an interesting aspect that persons who have responsibility in society, they do not only reduce their own footprint, but also the footprint of others. Here, one of you was talking about the opportunities and possibilities to reduce the carbon footprint by changing from a meat lover to no beef, to vegetarian, to vegan. And I think this is a nice figure showing that you can reduce from about more than 3 tons per year carbon to 1.5. And I think Venki from India, he was even able to reduce to 1.1 by probably using a lot of regional products or eating not as much. So yeah, but you see the dimension. You can really change it. I think most of you have. You are young people, and probably it depends very much on the cultures in Europe. To what extent students are going into the direction of vegetarian or near to vegetarian, like me as well. And I think many of the students here at German University are, let's say, reducing to low amount of meat only to certain occasions, or being vegetarian or even vegan in their style of eating. And this can be about 15% of your 20% of your carbon footprint. So it's a big thing. Okay, we talked about these points. I just have here to memorize, and this is my final slide. And I want to come back a little bit on the relevance of what we did, looking on the carbon footprint, or on bigger scale accounting, like countries, like enterprises. And I think it's important not only for us, for the awareness, for individual behavior, but also for successful international climate policy. Because transparency is so important in all fields of policy. We want to know the truth. Yeah? We want to know what is going into the sky. We want to know the truth in all fields of policy. Otherwise, there is no civil society input or effect on policy possible. So we have to fight for transparent information and accounting and publication of the budgets. This is important. And that we also have the budget approach, which is giving us the amount left, and we will know how many years we have. This we can measure every year on individual country on worldwide basis. And transparency is an antidote against greenwashing. Greenwashing is everywhere. Everybody is sustainable. Everybody is climate friendly. But we have to look more in detail. Yeah, we are with the budget approach and with the ability to understand the meaning of the sectors for the overall carbon footprint, we will identify the greenwashing very quickly. So I very much hope that the greenwashing period will be over soon. We need footprint information. I told you the story on the products and carbon pricing. I personally and privately engage for carbon pricing. The carbon price, I think, is the effective tool, maybe the most effective tool to transform the economy and to a sustainable economy. And I think the requirement for climate justice. This is true on a global scale, but also on a regional scale or very local scale. The rich and the poor, simply to say, they have they differ a lot in, to simplify, differ a lot in their carbon footprints. And so those who are on the rich side, they ate already most of the cake, and they have to leave even more than the mean to the others. And so this is even increasing the pressure and moral pressure on the global north to go forward and to go forward in a radical way. And yeah, the carbon footprint, watching carbon footprints can be, I think, an important puzzle piece. Well, so that was the workshop. I would like you to give the opportunity to talk a little bit, whatever you would like to talk about, maybe things we have forgotten, or we can focus, or also on the workshop as well, what you liked, what you did not like so much. You can also write it in the chat. You can also write an email to me. So this is my final slide. Let's work things out together, even if the system might look a little bit complicated, like on the picture here. I think you will know this wonderful movie, Modern Times. If not, you definitely have to look it. Okay, So we can stay in touch. And this is my email here. And
there
now
are questions coming.
Yeah, okay.
In the question part on the right side, ask a question.
Yeah.
So there are many questions. So maybe
okay.
we can start answering. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. How to deal with all these questions? Shall I just read them and try to answer?
Yes, I think so. It's a good idea.
Okay, I think then, can you recommend? I go with the 4 votes. Now I understand it. Thank you, Ms. Hunanyan. Can you recommend any kind of tool to calculate the carbon footprint to products or services? Well, there are some websites. It's difficult. It's difficult for food, but I can. Yeah, how can we do it? I can look it up. There are some papers where there are footprints of food mentioned, and there's also a website called Klimateller, but I'm afraid it's in German only. This is Klimateller.de. This is a website which enables you to calculate your personal menus. I once did this also. I invited friends and we cooked together, and I wrote for anything on our table the carbon footprint. Was of course vegetarian, ratatouille. Okay, next, is there some official carbon footprint calculator that is used by the government's institutions? Well, this is a very good question, because I'm working with carbon calculation at the institution of a university, and the universities in Germany do not use a standard tool. It's not existing. There are some private enterprises who have constructed these tools. They are somehow not open to the public how they work. Their secret has to be paid for. But they do not often, they are maybe roughly estimating. They're good for having a first idea. There is a lot of information on the Umweltbundesamt, the UBA page, also in English available. Page uba.de, it's in English, and there you find described the accounting standards, at least for the national footprint, but also some help for footprints of, for example, I forgot, Verwaltung. If you have, let's say, the technical parts or departments in institutions like ministries or also universities, schools, and also enterprise. Administration, right. Thank you, Jenny. So, yeah, there are these standards. Then there are for private enterprises, the big firms, they have norms, national norms like the Deutsche Industrienorm, and there you find kind of standards. But it's not so easy to get an idea. Well, I go on. As a population, should we focus more on changing our traveling habits or eating habits? Why and which would have a bigger impact? I think I have given you an answer. So you see that between meat lovers and vegans, there is something between 4 and 1 kilogram. But between a person which is traveling by bike and having, let's say, 5 or 10 transatlantic flights every year, there is a difference between 30 and 0.01. Yeah. So going often by plane is definitely very bad for your carbon footprint. But you have to see how you can reduce this. Technically, it will probably take 1 or 2 decades or so, and will be very expensive in the future. The long distance flights. Yeah, we will see how this will develop. I think there's a big pressure on the companies to develop technical solutions which are really carbon neutral. Well, I go to the next question, which is, if I, as one person, reduce my meat consumption, what difference happens in the production sector? Yeah, very good question. And this is, of course, the problem that with the individual behavior changes, we will not change the system quick enough. But on the other hand, we observe here in Germany in the Corona time that the big meat companies, also like the fuel, gas, oil companies, they reshape their business model. And they see the signs. So we have some former meat producing enterprises have changed their specialization to meat substitute products. And they are now leading companies in meat substitute products. By the way, I love some of these meat substitute products. They are developing quickly and they are now really well. They are tasting well. They are really good ones. And so there is a possibility that this will change. So again, no, I think, yeah, maybe one or two more. If you, as one person, but has big name like Kim Kardashian, Pope Francis, or D. Trump, then you are gonna a whole army of your lifestyle that can change you how producers work their strategies. I see. Yeah. I see. This goes in the direction of what I discussed with Taisia, right? I believe on the power of civil society engagement, and I also work in an NGO called Citizen Climate Lobby. We are talking and discussing with politicians on climate change from all parties, and there are all kinds of possibilities to put policy under pressure or try to convince politicians with good arguments, because climate protectors have the better arguments. The thing is that we just have to talk and we just have to bring these better arguments on spot. I simply see when I look back the last years, the dynamic in policy, the dynamic in the institutions everywhere is huge and it's going on. And so I'm optimistic that we will make big progress. I hope it will be big enough. Okay, so we are more or less at the end. I hope for your understanding that I will not go to all your questions, so we leave some behind. If there are important points open or not so important points, you can contact me. And I wish you a nice week. Maybe we meet on Friday. I will join and moderate a podium discussion on sustainable development in our region, in our federal state, Mecklenburg-Vorpommern, with a very nice, diverse podium of 4 female and 1 male experts from different fields of society, science and handcrafts and land use and startup scene and so on. And otherwise, I thank you for joining and enjoy the week, the rest of the week. And maybe we see in person someday. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Dr. Timmermann. Thanks everybody for your attention. And it was very interesting, actually, also for me to follow. Bye.